Welcome everyone to today's webinar, The Cost of Not Knowing Your Cost, How CFOs Can Bring Their Health System's Financial Picture into Full View. I am Ayla Ellison with Becker's Hospital Review. We will begin today's webinar with a presentation, and we'll have time at the end of the hour for a question and answer session. You can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar by typing them into the Q&A box you see on your screen. We are looking forward to hearing your questions. Today's session is being recorded and will be available after the event. You can use the same link you used to log into today's webinar to access the recording. At this time, it is now my pleasure to start today's webinar by introducing our presenter. Jeff Lambert, Chief Operating Officer and founder of Organizational Intelligence, has more than 25 years' experience focused on healthcare finance and decision support initiatives. Jeff is responsible for client activities, including system implementation and support, ongoing services, and product development. His experience ranges from large, complex healthcare organizations and governmental and academic health systems to community and rural hospitals. Prior to Organizational Intelligence, Jeff worked more than 7 years with the Big Four healthcare consulting practices of Ernst & Young and Deloitte & Touche. He has led projects related to system implementation, strategic planning, financial management reporting, budgeting, cost data development, performance improvement, and business development. Jeff is a certified management accountant in addition to his distinction as a fellow with the Healthcare Financial Management Association. He is also a project management professional. At this time, I am pleased to turn the floor over to Jeff to begin today's presentation.
Thank you. Hello, welcome to everyone joining here today. As mentioned, my name is Jeff Lambert, currently the CEO and founder of OI. I welcome you to our webinar today titled, What's the Cost of Not Knowing Your Cost? Cost accounting in healthcare has never been more important, but is often considered too difficult, expensive, or resource-intensive for many healthcare organizations. Additionally, other critical applications such as EMRs have been the primary focus and resource strain over the last decade. However, our industry is undergoing significant change and pressure is coming from all stakeholders to lower the cost of healthcare. Today, we're going to cover the basics regarding cost accounting. I will identify why the need for timely and credible cost accounting data has never been more critical. I will explain how and where cost data will add value to your organization. I'll describe the best cost accounting approach for speed and accuracy. I'll also summarize how to overcome implementation and ongoing maintenance challenges. And finally, I'll provide several examples of service line and financial management reports. Before I begin today, I'd like to thank and express my gratitude to all healthcare providers for their heroic care during the COVID-19 pandemic. They are sacrificing so much to save and care for so many. Hospital finance teams will need to match their dedication in addressing many near-term challenges for their organizations. Among many initiatives, hospitals will need to actively monitor KPIs in a more timely fashion, improve forecasting capabilities, and truly understand the profitability of key services and procedures. So prior to COVID-19, on a per capita basis, health spending has increased 31-fold in the last 4 decades, from $355 per person in 1970 to over $11,000 in 2018. Healthcare in the United States is expensive. We spend $2.8 trillion on healthcare annually. That works out to about 1/6 of the total economy and more than $8,500 per person, way more than any other country. If the healthcare system were to break off from the U.S. and become its own economy, it would be the 5th largest of the world, only behind the U.S., China, Japan, and Germany. Another way to examine spending trending is to look at what share of the economy is devoted to health. In 1970, the U.S. devoted 6.9% of its gross domestic product to total healthcare spending. By 2018, that amount spent on healthcare has increased to 17.7% of the GDP. Looking ahead, healthcare spending is projected to grow at an average rate of 5.5% per year between 2018 and 2027. This is faster than the economy's 4.7% growth. By 2027, healthcare spending is expected to total $6 trillion and account for nearly 1/5 of the GDP. The rate of growth for medical services, those services provided by physicians, clinics, or hospitals, varied by service type until recent years. During the 70s, growth in hospital expenditures outpaced other services, while prescriptions and physician clinics saw faster spending growth during the 80s and 90s. Between 2010 and 2018, average spending growth on prescription drugs and physician clinics was 4.4% and 3.8% respectively. Spending grew at a similar pace for hospitals, 4.7%. Hospital spending represents a third, 33% of overall health spending in 2018, and physician clinics represent 20% of the total spending. Prescription drugs accounted for 9% of total healthcare spending in 2018, which is up from 7% in 1970. For community hospitals, expenses inch closer to revenues during a recent 5-year period tracked by the American Hospital Association. The gap between inpatient and outpatient revenues dramatically narrowed during the 5 years. Among the 5,200 community hospitals served, total net revenues in 2014 outpaced total expenses by 9%, but by 2018, revenues were only 8% higher than expenses. Another key development was the narrowing gap between inpatient and outpatient revenue. Inpatient revenues were 16% higher than outpatient revenues in 2014, but by 2018, inpatient revenues were higher by only 3%. So with that perspective, why the need for timely and credible cost information has never been more important. It seems that many of the major health publications are writing in each issue topics regarding cost accounting, the need for cost containment and cost reduction, and how costs relate to the quality of care. I pulled together some brief snapshots of what industry publications are saying. One of the most serious issues on any CEO's mind is ensuring the financial viability of their organization. As more hospitals adapt to value-based reimbursement models, leaving the old model of fee-for-service behind, this can be a delicate transition and might be difficult for everyone in the organization. Everyone will need to provide assistance. An advisory board survey indicates that hospital leaders don't think they can grow their way out of margin challenges. There is more urgency to control costs as margin pressures intensify. In Becker's CFO Strategy Roundtable, cost containment was identified as one of the 3 biggest goals for hospital CFOs in 2019. From Modern Healthcare, it states as more healthcare revenue contracts are linked to value-based purchasing, hospitals must increase their focus on cost containment. Hospitals must learn how to correlate per unit revenue with per unit cost, as well as considering various quality outcomes. Growing volume will no longer automatically translate to greater profitability. Higher productivity supported by effective cost accounting will earn them more nickels and dimes and will differentiate between winning and losing hospitals. In another quote, this one from HFMA, it states, to obtain a clear picture of costs and their relationship to quality, which are essential for ACO success, ACO organizations need to consider what drives profitability, either profitability by case or by service line, which activities and processes produce value, enhance quality, and improve outcomes. How does the contractual payer prices compare with the associated costs? How much capacity is being utilized, and whether equipment investments are justified? This is also from HFMA article regarding the current and future directions of healthcare value. The study states that the current standard costing models are not well suited for capturing the complex cost and service structure of modern healthcare organizations, especially ACO models, which assume more financial risk as part of their model. The problem is that the legacy models yield rudimentary cost allocations that fail to match resources and the related cost of resources, making it virtually impossible to make informed decisions that will improve financial results to meet ACO targets. In my opinion, this slide may be the case for several organizations. Management doesn't have access to the costs of key operations. Costs at the procedural level, as well as patient margins, are unknown, while each and every day decisions are being made without this vital information. It is hard to think of any other industry where a CFO has difficulty explaining the profit margin at a detailed level for the top 10 products or services provided to their customers. Historically, we have based decisions on market share or revenue growth or enhancements, sometimes never considering the profit margin of such products. I also find this quote from Robert Kaplan in the Harvard Business Review rather revealing. He states that the remedy to the cost crisis does not require medical service breakthroughs or new government regulation. It simply requires a new way to accurately measure costs and compare them with outcomes. These articles indicate that the healthcare organizations need and will benefit from the implementation of a decision support cost accounting system. The data derived from these systems will absolutely be necessary to provide services to the ongoing changes. Looking at research data from HIMSS Analytics for hospital systems, it appears that about 27% of U.S. hospitals currently do not have a cost accounting system installed. About 70% of hospitals report that they do have an automated system installed. When analyzing these hospitals that report an installed cost accounting system, 70% of all U.S. hospitals, their data can be further separated as follows. 38% are legacy systems, which are the older systems from the 80s and 90s. 46% don't have a comprehensive cost accounting system, or its functionality is bare bones and therefore cannot perform to today's standards. Only 9% indicated they have a next generation or advanced cost accounting system in place. The cost accounting may have had a bad reputation in the past. Many reasons exist for hospitals not including cost accounting in their routine financial management reporting. Legacy systems were not user-friendly and took as many FTEs as you had available to implement. Once implemented, they were difficult to maintain. Data changes were too difficult to expediently incorporate into the cost models, and they utilized rudimentary methodologies such as RCCs. And at the end of the day, these methodologies did not result in actionable data. They simply were not accurate and therefore not trusted by management. So let's now review how and where cost data will add value to your organization. I always like to begin by reiterating the obvious fact that top executives need to set the tone for the entire organization. This is key for this type of reporting. Successful cost accounting system implementation requires a true commitment from executives and senior managers. Leadership from the senior team is the most significant factor in helping employees to buy into and support needed changes. Data-driven organizations typically possess similar crucial elements. They contain data-savvy people, users that want to validate their hunches and assumptions with fact-based data, and thus understand their operations better. They strive to continually improve the quality of their data, realizing that they may never be 100% complete, but recognize data integrity that is actionable. They utilize state-of-the-art tools, those with tool sets that continually evaluate data integrity, which enable users to analyze data, not endlessly compile it. And probably most importantly, they exhibit organizational intent. They will use the data for decision-making. Sometimes it is easier to ingest data from all sources historically, as opposed to understand the impact of the APIs. Immediate ROI opportunities exist for the use of cost accounting data. Common reporting and analysis needs include service line reporting for both inpatient and outpatient populations, contract evaluations when negotiating per diem rates as well as case rates, tracking financial and clinical performance improvement initiatives, labor productivity reporting as well as flexible budgeting, and improving and enhancing accountability throughout the organization by providing communication and collaboration channels. Cost data can and should be used across the entire organization. This slide illustrates many examples of where cost data adds value. With current and future challenges facing our industry, the need for cost data is critical. Healthcare organizations need to understand the relationship between cost of care and quality outcomes to maximize their ability to deliver high-quality care at lower cost. Reimbursement is evolving towards value-based payment models that reward higher quality with lower costs with shared savings. Payment models include an element of risk, potentially substantial in one form or another. Credible and detailed cost data are a key element in forming an ACO and achieving effective population health management. Cost data combined with clinical data are facilitating advanced cost analysis and improvement initiative efforts. A comprehensive data set, including cost data, is required to identify, quantify, and measure clinical improvement initiatives. I've seen instances of these types of analysis, and they play a vital role in the pursuit of providing quality care at the lowest necessary cost. Here's a short list summarizing where cost accounting plays a key role in improving outcomes. Cost accounting can pinpoint cost-saving opportunities that otherwise would be missed. It improves budgeting and planning capabilities, provides clinical financial analysis by payer, service line, physician, DRG, patient encounter, and so on. It facilitates the correlation of the cost of care with quality outcomes, supports performance improvement initiatives, and knowing cost is critical to evolving at-risk models. It is instrumental to population health management and managing ACOs. Now let's focus on the best accounting approach for speed and accuracy. As always, healthcare organizations will need to apply a cost-benefit analysis to determine how complex they want their cost model to be. Other considerations include the cost driver approach, professional and technical costing differing patient populations such as the 340B drug costs, and the inclusion of sophisticated EMR stats as cost objects. Cost accounting is a system for recording and allocating cost of services provided to patients. Cost objects can include x-rays, lab tests, as well as room and board activity. There are a variety of methods to estimate costs. They range from simple allocations to complex activity driver-based methodologies. So let's talk about the best cost accounting approach for speed and accuracy. The goal is to implement a cost accounting system as fast as possible, but with a high level of accuracy, and the cost of implementation needs to be kept as low as possible. The best possible approach is the cost accounting methodologies that are being used in hospitals today. It will focus on the approach that I feel makes the most sense given today's technology and also the resource constraints felt by hospitals. The methodology selected is vitally important. While some methodologies are quick to implement, they yield inaccurate results, such as RCCs. Advanced cost accounting is a hybrid approach based on the cost driver or RVU methodology, and the charge and description master provide cost objects. What makes it different from just the straight cost driver methodology is that it incorporates an actual cost where available, price lists for key supply and pharmacy items, substituting for cost drivers, and incorporates non-chargeable activity. Always remembering the goal is to improve the accuracy of the unit cost calculation. I'm now going to discuss the four main methodologies for cost accounting, focusing on the effort to implement and maintain versus the desired level of accuracy. At the very bottom left corner is the RCC method, or ratio of cost to charge. This methodology utilizes the ratio of expense to revenue. Various sources of calculating cost RCCs can be captured off the Medicare cost report or by utilizing individual departments' gross charges and expenses, calculating the ratio between the expenses and revenues on a per department basis, and then combining that together with a patient population study or utilization study to perform financial analysis. The RVU method is positioned in the middle of the screen. It utilizes relative value units to allocate cost based on estimated resource consumptions at the charge level. The advanced costing method, further to the right, utilizes the RVU method as its foundation, but it also incorporates a hybrid approach. This allows more sophistication in detail costing, which achieves greater accuracy. And finally, in the upper right corner is the ABC costing methodology. Activity-based costing goes beyond the charge item and incorporates non-chargeable activity for costing. It is more useful in specific areas of a hospital, but is very labor-intensive to implement and maintain. It is often regarded as the most accurate methodology. Causality is the heart of ABC. For example, if the quantity of an activity driver increases 20%, then its activity cost should also increase 20%. The work activities are what consume the resource capacity expenses. This graphic shows that we are interested in the total cost required for patient care. It includes direct costs as well as indirect costs. Costs are categorized by direct and indirect, and then further by cost behavior, such as variable direct labor, supplies, and other, as well as fixed direct labor, depreciation, and other expenses. Cost drivers create the path or bridge between the GL and the departmental activities, or CDM listing. So cost drivers are simply a numeric scale. They are used to weight the amount of resources allocated to the various service codes in that department relative to each other regarding labor and/or supply intensity. This slide conceptualizes the cost accounting process. Data includes the typical inputs, general ledger, payroll, charge utilization. We can also include other non-CDM activity drivers. The cost structure maps GL subaccounts and job codes to a variety of cost types and cost categories based on cost behaviors, redirecting as much direct expense possibly upfront, thereby avoiding adding more expense to the indirect allocation. And then lastly, selecting from a variety of methods, cost drivers are utilized to allocate costs to departmental activity. Drivers can include technical estimates, numerical scales, actual costs, industry RVUs, or worked RVUs, which are typically associated with physician charges. The basics of cost drivers, or RVUs, can be similar to DRG weights, and they are used to allocate the amount of resources. For example, labor, supplies, other costs used for each CDM item compared to the other CDMs in each department. The goal is to allocate all costs from the general ledger to all the various service supplied items that are generated. This slide presents a graphical display of the typical implementation timeline. The advanced accounting methodology typically encompasses approximately a 6-month implementation process. The first month is spent on collecting and importing data. Second month's work involves interfacing data into cost structures and adjusting for any data issues. Structure mapping includes defining cost types and cost categories and creating the indirect cost allocation structure. We also map any necessary allocations that are not performed on the general ledger in order to match resources to utilization. An example can include when several radiology departments are categorized by modality, but all the technicians' time may be captured in one cost center. We would want to allocate that time to the various departments where the service lines were performed, which will help us match revenues and expenses. Major activities for months 3 through 6 include training and developing cost drivers with the department managers. Training includes cost accounting concepts and acronyms with the goal of everybody understanding the concepts and project timeline. Developing cost drivers with the clinical department managers is necessary for the development of unit costs. These costs will ultimately be utilized for reporting and analysis, as well as possibly the development of flexible budgets. As with all projects, cost accounting can be implemented in a phased approach. Each phase can be coordinated with other hospital-wide initiatives so that focused attention can be achieved. Other key considerations including having participants focus on relevant actionable data, focusing on the 90% that's accurate and correct versus the 10% that needs further reconciliation. Understanding how much historical data will truly be worthwhile, and also understanding the cost benefit of complex indirect cost structures, the maintenance. In this section, I'll address how an organization can overcome implementation and maintenance challenges. The project can sometimes be overwhelming based on a number of factors, including the availability of department management resources. Also, finance resources. Is there sufficient in-house knowledge of cost accounting, and do they possess the technology skills required? There are ways to make this project successful. Let's discuss how we can mitigate some of these issues. As mentioned before, no doubt cost accounting does have a bit of a bad reputation from past implementations performed in the 80s and 90s. Cost accounting systems during those years were difficult to use and maintain, and it took a lot of effort to get them implemented. The time and effort to implement these systems can take longer than expected. Cost data accuracy and the credibility can be sometimes questionable. Limited vendor support, too many other priorities that take precedence, or simply just a lack of participation by clinical managers. Developing cost drivers by technical estimate takes time and is sometimes difficult for non-financial managers. The amount of ongoing maintenance it takes the system to keep going and the cost could outweigh the benefits. These are some of the many challenges. Let's discuss how to mitigate them. I like to think of cost accounting as a team sport. Implementing cost accounting requires expertise from across the organization. Clinical department managers and proxies play a key role in providing technical estimates and resource consumption estimates when developing cost drivers. Cost drivers play the leading role as to where expenses are allocated and ultimately determine the accuracy of the individual activity level unit costs. From my experience, this is really the most critical and resource-intensive phase of the entire implementation process. This is also where there's a potential for less than desirable outcomes. On the surface, cost driver development seems straightforward. Clinical managers and proxies estimate the amount of resources using a numeric scale. Some hospitals can have up to 20,000 unique cost objects. It can become a major resource of time and development into a black hole endeavor. I expect the cost driver development effort as the primary reason as to why many hospitals have not implemented a credible cost accounting solution and instead utilize an inaccurate methods such as RCCs or other inferior estimation methods just to avoid advanced cost accounting. There are a number of factors that play into whether a cost accounting implementation and cost driver development project is successful or not. And any one of these factors can derail an implementation, which result in resource and time overruns and less than credible outcomes. So after all, cost driver development is more an art than a science. However, developing cost drivers doesn't have to be the roadblock to implement a cost accounting system, a system that is just as critical as any other system required for the ever-evolving healthcare environment. I have identified 8 development strategies to combat or mitigate these challenges. How to effectively meet the challenge of limited resources and intensity of cost data development. From years of experience with cost data development and cost accounting implementations, these 8 strategies have evolved over the years and have been refined in order to streamline the implementation effort, but at the same time ensure a high level of trust in unit cost quality and sustainability. These strategies at the core focus first on cost versus benefit, with the goal to strike a balance between the amounts of time clinical resources must spend developing and maintaining cost drivers versus the desired quality of the unit cost data. Let's discuss them briefly. The first strategy is executive sponsorship, which probably seems like a no-brainer, but oftentimes when projects get kicked off without executive sponsorship, those projects tend to fall into the background. Executive sponsorship is really important because the implementation effort is across the entire organization. A lot of management outside of finance will be involved. It cannot be simply a finance project. Cost accounting is typically viewed as a financial initiative, and therefore it may not be a priority for clinical departments. But in reality, cost accounting will highlight or unhide hospital-wide and departmental issues, and more importantly, benefits. It cannot be implemented in a vacuum. Executive sponsorship and support across the senior management team is key in freeing up resources and to providing the initiative and focus which this project requires. Strategy number 2 is familiarity with the activity master for each department. As more and more patient charges are automated, familiarity with the service codes cannot be assumed. The typical large departmental activity listing with sometimes very cryptic abbreviations can be problematic when developing cost drivers, so department cost driver managers must be familiar with the various service codes. I highlight this issue because in my experience, oftentimes the individual assigned to develop cost drivers is not prepared or knowledgeable on departmental activities. The project work should allow time to take corrective actions if necessary. Conducting a review session with the individual that maintains the department activity listing and the department cost driver manager to clarify service code descriptions and abbreviations often solves any questions. Also, incorporating statistics captured in the evolving EMR systems can provide more detailed costing. Strategy 3 involves the development of a distributed cost accounting reporting package. Managers need to have access to the common reports surrounding the development of unit costs, including unit cost data, expense mappings, departmental activities or volumes, and details regarding the indirect cost allocation structure and values. Senior management will need to receive reporting on service lines and reports on the most costly and highly utilized products and services. Strategy 4 is to provide cost accounting training to cost data managers and users. They need a brief training course that covers cost accounting concepts and its purpose. Training should be conducted at both the department and hospital-wide levels. This includes basic cost accounting calculations and an introduction to the cost driver development processes. The fifth strategy is to continually evaluate the matching principle. Data is fluid and systems are continually being updated or replaced. The goal is to match utilization or departmental volumes with the resources or expenses associated with producing that activity, such as labor, supplies, and other resources. Strategy 6 is to focus on the most material activities for each department. Developing standards for the highest utilized or revenue-based services should be the initial focus when beginning cost data development, as all other products can be updated in future costing periods. Make sure you include participation from department experts for their technical expertise in cost data development buy-in. Strategy 7, in my opinion, the cost data development process is enhanced and completed in a more timely process when departmental accountability is included in the implementation. Department managers will be more attentive when operations are assessed via a flexible budget or FTE productivity monitoring systems. Expenses and volumes are reviewed frequently to ensure accurate reporting. The final strategy, strategy number 8, incorporates ongoing maintenance and periodic reviews. Department activity listings change, service codes are added routinely, so updating the listing is efficient and maintains the accuracy of the monthly and year-to-date unit cost calculations. Alternatively, waiting until the end of the fiscal year to update new listings can have a measurable impact on the unit cost quality. Each organization is different, but it takes a couple of cost driver development cycles before everyone is comfortable with them. So in summary, cost drivers play a primary role in advanced hospital cost accounting. This method requires involvement across the entire organization. Even though the scope of the effort can appear significant, effectively executing each of these strategies previously outlined will dramatically reduce the time and resources required. And as with all projects, a structured approach can improve the potential for success. The first step here is defining success is key. Most often, hospitals build a cost model too complex for year one endeavors. A model that evolves with users' needs is more attainable. So once those cost data development endeavors have been completed, the analysts now have access to improved reporting. One of the main goals of decision support in cost accounting is to transform financial management reporting from a historical cost center sub-account view to a patient-centric view. Patient demographic information such as clinical descriptors, physician information, payer data, as well as quality indicators are ingested and matched with cost data for the encounter utilization. Net revenue, both actual and expected, are also ingested to provide potentially for the first time profit at the encounter level. Specializing in a few service lines allows hospitals to build a critical mass of patients in select areas and enjoy economies of skill and scale. In our experience, hospitals that make the leap to a service line orientation become more productive, improve their quality of care, recruit physicians more effectively, and build market share. By developing a focused service line strategy, hospitals can limit their investments in non-priority areas, with savings to be found in areas ranging from marketing to new technologies. So let's review a few examples. So here we're taking a look at a service line performance report that has been an element of healthcare provider organizations several decades, with financial outcomes serving as the primary data points of the finance team functioning as the biggest consumer of this data. Today, across access to performance analytics that are structured around clinical service lines are needed by a broader set of stakeholders to support planning and performance improvement initiatives. At a more granular level, service line analytics may help answer the following questions. Which patients and services have the greatest impact on revenue? How are shifts in the service mix and volume impacting the hospital or health system's bottom line over time? How can physician-clinician behavior be influenced to reduce the cost of care? While the finance team remains the primary consumer of this data, the formulation and implementation of strategic and performance improvement initiatives is increasingly a partnership with each operational and clinical managers. The concept, "you can't manage what you don't measure," describes the call to action healthcare professionals must heed when seeking to improve the effectiveness of their business performance reporting. Here, looking at principal procedures within the cardiology service line. The introduction and timely dissemination of service line performance analytics should provide important insights into current trends that can be used to inform strategic and operational decisions. When used effectively, this information is integrated as a key dimension of planning models to support decisions related to strategic investment of capital dollars, simulation of models to revenue contracts, and growth and service rationalization. You should be able to drill down and view profitability from different levels. Here we're taking a look at profit margins by physician. This could either be the attending MD, ordering MD, or principal surgeon. More and more physicians are becoming employees of hospital-based programs, which increase the demand and value of cost accounting. Employed physicians are aligned with and are incentivized by the organizations that employ them. This dynamic improves collaboration between physicians and hospital organization and enhances the impact and value that cost data brings to the discussion. Providing engaged physicians with credible cost data can have a substantial impact on lowering the cost of care. Here we drill down to major payer. This can include financial class or insurance codes. This information can substantially improve contracting with patient utilization, cost, and profit details during negotiations. And also the necessity to drill down into details for analysis. So this is showing drilling down to the DRG level. This is sometimes required for detailed analysis. And eventually with the goal of drilling all the way down to the individual encounter. This could potentially allow an analyst to compare the cost effect of a patient with specific quality indicators versus other patients, or the cost of one physician versus his or her peer group. Drilling into the encounter allows viewing key descriptors, plus mapping that encounter possibly against a target or a benchmark. With the ability to analyze utilization and the cost of day of service, so what was charged and costed on day 1, day 2, day 3 of the inpatient stay. Or separating the data by departmental utilization. This is also valuable information for contract negotiations, physician peer review, or performance improvement projects. Decision teams also need access to dynamic dashboards to analyze data. Clicking on any field updates the entire dashboard with the latest parameters. This allows decisions to be made more efficiently, not wanting to wait until finance reconfigures spreadsheets to answer the inevitable additional questions that are asked. Also, proactive scheduling these reports to be delivered to management via email can point out issues sooner than later. Any number of quality indicators can be included on the patient record to fully understand the cost of quality or lack thereof. So the modern decision support and healthcare analytical system must be able to provide data to the entire management team of a healthcare organization. Access and functionality are key. Current data, not months-old stale data, must be provided to support business intelligence, performance management, and analytics requirements. Now, more than ever, managers will need to review KPIs pertinent to their operations. Key stats can include utilization stats, financial labor ratios, quality indicators, as well as any other metric. Access to point-and-click departmental performance reports are needed to compare actual and budget variances, with the ability to drill down to account-level details such as GL entries, AP invoices, or material management records. Trend analysis investigations will assist in understanding expense relations with differing levels of utilization stats. The goal is to improve communication and collaboration throughout the hospital organization. A key tool is variance analysis. Responsibility reporting allows all departmental leadership to comment on material variances based on percentage and dollar materiality. In addition to understanding why a variance is occurring, another key goal is to clean up any accounting issues or errors before the data flows to the cost accounting module. Labor typically is greater than 60% of total operating expense. This allows managers the ability to point and click their way through various labor productivity reports, which cleanses the data for cost accounting and budgeting initiatives. And finally, encounter profitability information can be utilized for the development of a guideline budget tied to the strategic plan or other business development forecasts. So from the previous examples, it's quite evident that decision support systems ingest an incredible amount of data from disparate systems. Multiple feeds of the same data for different purposes, such as financial reporting, budgeting, and cost accounting, can further complicate matters. Analysts spend their entire time compiling and reconciling data as opposed to analyzing the data. This much data manipulation can cause confusion and errors. This means you're jeopardizing your planning, clinical financial integrity, and data governance, possibly on a daily basis. The goal of decision support system is to become the single source of truth. Data is sent once and flows throughout the entire system, giving peace of mind to the CFO and the finance team that they are viewing data that is fully reconciled. Honest data is one database, one system, one answer, one source of truth on your journey to financial health. So the finance team always wants to improve their position at the decision-making table. With fact-based data behind each decision, their role will evolve from an analyst, where you're asked to, what do you want to analyze, to an expert, where the question becomes, what does the data show, to an advisor, what do you think of the analysis, and finally then to a partner, what should we do? And I'd like to finalize with the keys to success, the 3 pillars. You might be familiar with them. So the keys to success, which can be displayed by 3 pillars: people, process, and technology. Each of these, in my mind, is equally important to ensure a successful implementation and a sustainable solution that will bring value to the organization. So people, cost accounting requires knowledgeable and experienced resources. They are necessary to achieve a successful implementation. Experienced resources know how to address an organization's unique data issues and determine the appropriate cost structure, count mappings, and most efficient cost driver development strategy. Collaboration across the entire organization, transforming a finance project to an organization-wide project, which involves everyone on cost accounting concepts, how the data will be used, and the value it brings to the organization. Pillar 2 is process. The implementation process is more an art than a science. There are unique data value issues in every organization. The implementation approach must be flexible enough to resolve them. So additionally, it is possible to overcomplicate the system and how it is set up, and possibly even the cost driver development process to the point of diminishing returns, which results in a negative influence on future benefits and sustainability. Again, after years of experience implementing cost accounting as a user, consultant, as well as a vendor, this leads to the following recommendations. First is to follow the 8 strategies previously discussed. We know they work, they've been used extensively in all our implementations. Focus initial cost driver development on the high unit cost types. Secondly, potentially use the 80-20 rule to prioritize activity items. Oftentimes, there are a majority of charge items that are rarely used or have no volumes. Operational cost accounting reporting and analysis. Distribute the information and get the various functions using it across the organization. And lastly, don't let the data get old. It must be maintained. The third pillar is technology. Advanced cost accounting provides features and functionality intended to expedite implementation, improve cost data integrity, and allow enterprise access and use while minimizing ongoing maintenance. Your technology solution must be robust, but also user-friendly. So my preference is an integrated solution with a single DSS or BI environment. Functionality should include scalability for the organization's size and complexity, utilizing activity, cost driver, hybrid costing approach. Finally, current technology will be required to integrate cost data together with encounter utilization and any EHR data to provide clinical, financial analysis and reporting. So hopefully we can all realize that the cost of not knowing your cost is expensive. Fact-based data will be required for all healthcare organizations to manage all of our next challenges. A complete, modern, unified system created by today's hospital, health system, and physician group finance challenges are a must. So thank you for your time and attention today. Definitely, if you have any additional information, let's discuss at your convenience, or feel free to email me.
Thank you, Jeff, for your fantastic presentation today. We will now begin today's question and answer session. So please submit any questions you have by typing them into the Q&A box you see on your dashboard, and we'll try to get through as many questions as we have time for today. Jeff, we've already had a few questions come through during your presentation, so we'll go ahead and get started with those now. And the first question that was submitted for you today is about data sources. So the process that you walked us through with cost accounting requires data from a lot of sources. And so can you explain how you get that data?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and we receive that quite a bit during implementations as to what information should be brought into a decision support system. Our typical answer is that if the data can be captured electronically, we can bring that in. And it can come, data resides in many different sources, such as the general ledger, data warehouses, or many other shadow systems. So the idea is to bring that data into decision support, automate the data as often as comfortable. Most of our clients will automate daily on a daily basis, and definitely provide a lot of detailed reconciliation reports that could potentially highlight data issues, because data is fluid and is constantly evolving.
Thanks, Jeff. That's really helpful to understand. And I think looking through the rest of the questions that have come through, the next question is about implementation. And this person's wanting to know, how long does it take to get up and running? And if you can describe what a typical timeline is.
Yeah, that's another great question that we run into quite often. You know, usually the foundational modules, which we would include general ledger, labor, metrics, those type of modules, those can be up and running typically in less than 90 days. Cost accounting, as well as the encounter reporting that we showed, typically depends on the complexity of the client, if they're new to cost accounting, or if there's any type of cost accounting system that can be leveraged. We typically set a goal of 6 months, less than 6 months, to get that implemented, and that's dealing and working with the department managers education and training and the development of those cost drivers.
Great, thank you so much, Jeff. The next question that came through for you today is about, after installing the system, can you talk a little bit about, what are some of the typical comments or feedback that CFOs give you after installing the system?
Yeah, a lot of the feedback that we receive is for a lot of our clients, the goal is to be the decision support system has become the single source of truth. And this provides relief to the CFO with his or her team. Lots of time there's lots of confusion among the many different shadow systems that are being maintained. The timing, what's in one system, what's not in another system, and all of the compilation of data that's required for any business question or decision that's being made. So being able to have a single system that can be depended upon based upon fact-based financial tool for decision-making is a welcome relief. Now, it is a challenge for a lot of our clients to get to that level, but they do like everyone working off of the same system and viewing the same data. That definitely makes decision-making more efficient.
Great, thanks for sharing some of that feedback that you received. I think that's helpful to everyone on the line today. We have time for, it looks like, a few more questions. So I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. And this person is asking, who are the users in your client site?
Yeah, this is another great question. The idea with a modern decision support system is to disseminate the information throughout the entire organization. So really, all the decision makers within the hospital have the ability to point and click their way through the various reports. Decision support provides a wide breadth of data. It will uncover any potential issues. It improves communication and collaboration throughout the entire organization. And then there's a lot of new features where you can push this information out. So the user doesn't necessarily have to log in each day to view information. We can schedule reports and send that information out on a daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly process. And so once there's an issue that needs to be reviewed, the end user can then go into the system for further analysis. But we've had lots of discussions where users have found issues on billing or potentially major accounting errors. And so a system like this definitely brings all of that to light, a lot of the issues as well as a lot of the benefits, what's going well and how to enhance that. And as everyone walks in, in the morning, business day, 8 to 5, all of the data is refreshed. So they're always looking at the latest information. And so, there's no consideration as if there's a time gap or a system issue. They're always looking at the latest information.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. It looks like we have time for one more question I want to get through before we wrap things up today. And this last question for you, Jeff, is what causes delays in buying a system like this?
Yeah, another great question. That comes up quite often where, we see a lot of system implementations across the entire healthcare organizations. So, potential users of decision support will try to identify the best time to implement a decision support system. What we see is that because these systems are being implemented from finance to EMRs, clinical systems, I think really the evaluation is how long can the organization go without cost accounting. What we see is some of these other systems being implemented, the complete time is definitely over the projected timeline. So, I think the big decision is being able to make a decision and go forward and start developing cost data. And this tends to be an iterative process. The data gets better and better as you become more acclimated to the system. So it's really trying to identify when is the best time. And it seems like the present is always the best time.
Jeff, I appreciate you taking the time to answer some of the questions that have came in today throughout the presentation. Before we end things today, do you have any final thoughts to share?
I just wanted to say thank you for everyone's attention. I think with COVID-19 and the attention to the financial aspects of hospital operations, I think cost accounting and margin analysis is going to be as prominent as ever.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you for sharing your thoughts today and your excellent presentation. We also want to thank Organizational Intelligence for sponsoring today's webinar. Please enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to having everyone join us for future webinars.